Kaylee Thorne was floating through space, her hands shaking as her ship burned from inside. The warning lights flashed red all around her, and smoke filled the control room. She pressed every button she could, trying to slow the fall, but nothing worked. Her ship had been hit. The engines were gone. The rescue team had no way to reach her in time. She knew it. She could feel it. Her crew had already escaped in pods. She made sure they left first. That was her job, as their commander. But now, the ship was alone. Just her. And the sound of sparks, alarms, and the deep silence of space outside. Kaylee's heart was calm, strangely. She had trained for this. She had always known something like this could happen. As the last flames burned through the side walls, she looked out through the cracked window. A blue and green planet shone below, Earth, an old world rarely visited anymore. It was peaceful to look at, her last sight. She closed her eyes. She didn't expect to wake up again, but she did. At first, everything was blurry. Her body felt heavy, like it was wrapped in thick layers. Her skin stung, and her leg hurt badly. But it was warm. That surprised her. Warmth meant fire or life. She wasn't sure which one. Then a voice spoke. Low, calm, not hers. Easy now. You're safe. She blinked slowly, forcing her eyes open. She was lying on the ground, not inside her ship. Around her were rocks, shadows, and the flickering orange of a small fire. The ceiling wasn't metal, it was stone. She was in a cave. Then she saw him, a human. Tall, with short brown hair and a few cuts on his face. His clothes were old and torn at the edges, and his hands looked like he had worked with tools or climbed, something hard. But his eyes were kind. He was sitting beside her, holding a wet cloth to her head. You fell from the sky, he said, with a tired smile. You're lucky. I thought I'd find only wreckage. Kaylee tried to sit up, but the pain in her side made her stop. She looked at her arm, bandaged, her leg wrapped carefully. He had taken care of her. How? Who are you? She asked, her voice weak and dry. Eli, he said. Eli Carter. She wanted to ask more questions. Where she was, what he saw, how long she had been here. But her head hurt too much. So she let her eyes close again. Just for a little while. The next time she woke up, it was night. Cold wind blew across the cave entrance. The fire still burned, and Eli was sitting by it, carving something from wood with a small knife. He looked up when she moved. Hey, you're awake again. She nodded slowly. How did you find me? I live not far from here. I saw something burning in the sky. It crashed deep in the woods. I followed the smoke. Found you barely breathing, wrapped in that silver uniform of yours. He tilted his head. You're not from around here, that's clear. Kaylee stayed quiet. Eli didn't press her. He only added wood to the fire and handed her a piece of flat bread. It was dry, but warm. She ate slowly. I'm not here to hurt you, he said after a while. You don't have to tell me anything if you're not ready. That surprised her. Most humans she had read about, especially in first contact reports, reacted with fear or too many questions. But Eli was different. You live alone? She finally asked. He nodded, off-grid. After some time in the city, I needed quiet. The world moves too fast. Here I can breathe. Kaylee understood that more than he knew. For the next few days, she stayed in that cave. Her strength returned slowly. Eli brought her water from a stream nearby. He cooked simple meals over the fire. He had no high tech, no machines, no scanner tools. But somehow, he kept her alive better than any robot could, and he never asked who she really was. That gave her comfort. She wasn't ready to explain yet about her people, her ship, her mission. about the message she had been carrying through, that part of space. All she knew was that someone had fired on her ship, on purpose, and she had fallen to Earth. But right now, none of that mattered. Right now, she was just Kaylee, wounded, alive, being helped by a man who owed her nothing. One night, as she sat near the fire watching the stars outside the cave, she asked softly, "Why did you help me?" Eli looked up from where he was fixing his backpack. "Because you needed help," he said simply. She looked at him closely. "Even though I'm not one of you?" He gave a small shrug. "Doesn't matter. You were broken and breathing. That's enough." Kaylee didn't reply, but something deep inside her shifted. She had been a soldier, a commander, a protector. She had always believed in duty, in rules, in missions. But here, in a cave lit by firelight and surrounded by forest, she saw something different. Kindness. Without questions. Without borders. That night, Kaylee didn't sleep as easily, not because she was scared, but because something new had begun inside her, and she didn't know what it meant. The wind outside the cave whistled through the trees like a distant song. Kaylee sat on a flat rock near the fire, her arms wrapped around her knees. Her injuries were healing thanks to the care Eli had given her, but the questions in her mind weren't so easy to fix. Eli returned from the woods just as the sky turned orange with the setting sun. He carried a bundle of dry branches and a few wild fruits in his backpack. Kaylee watched as he set them down, checking the fire before saying anything. "Still sore?" he asked gently. "Less than yesterday," she replied. "That's good." They sat in silence for a few moments. Kaylee noticed how natural Eli looked in the wild. He moved easily through the forest, his hands rough but skilled. Everything he did, gathering food, lighting a fire, fixing torn cloth, he did with quiet focus. He was not a man who needed a lot of words, and Kaylee had started to appreciate that. Later, as they shared a meal of roasted roots and berries, Kaylee finally spoke again. "You live here alone all the time?" Eli nodded. "Been about 3 years. After I left my job in the city." "What did you do before this?" "I was an EMT, emergency medical work. I helped people in accidents or disasters." Kaylee looked at him a little surprised. "So you were a healer?" "I guess," he said with a small smile. "Just not in spacesuits." She let out a quiet laugh, her first laugh since the crash. He leaned back against the wall of the cave, watching the firelight flicker. "I had a sister," he added after a moment. "She was a rescue pilot, brave, strong. She flew into storms to pull people out." "What happened to her?" "Her ship disappeared during a mountain mission. Bad weather. They never found it." Kaylee didn't know what to say. The pain in Eli's eyes was clear, but he didn't let it control him. He carried it like a quiet weight, just like she carried her own. "I'm sorry," she said. "Thanks," he replied. "That's part of why I came out here. Needed space to think, or maybe just escape." Kaylee stared at the fire, thinking about her own crew. Had they made it? Were they safe? Did they think she was dead? She didn't even know where their escape pods had landed. "I was in charge of my ship," she said softly. "We weren't soldiers. We were transporters, carrying medical supplies, peace files. What happened? We were hit. No warning. It was like someone was waiting for us." Eli's face turned serious. "So it wasn't an accident?" "I don't think so. Why would anyone shoot at a medical ship?" Kaylee shook her head. "That's what I'm trying to understand." Eli stood up and added a few more sticks to the fire. "Maybe someone didn't want your supplies to reach where they were going," Kaylee nodded. "That's possible. We were near restricted space. Some planets don't trust outsiders." "Earth used to be like that too," Eli said. "Still is, in some ways." Kaylee tilted her head. Why do you say that? Because people fear what they don't understand. It's easier to say no than to learn. She looked at him for a long time. You're not afraid of me. No, he said. You're just different, but not dangerous. That small answer warmed her more than the fire. The next morning, Kaylee woke early. She stepped out of the cave for the first time since the crash. Her legs felt weak, but she managed. The forest around them was thick and green. Trees stretched high and birds flew across the sky. It was quiet, but full of life. Eli walked beside her, making sure she didn't trip. He showed her how. He filtered water using stones and moss. He taught her which berries were safe and which ones to avoid. Kaylee listened closely. On her ship, she had studied over 100 planets, but this felt different. This was survival without machines, without systems, just two people helping each other. That evening, they sat near the fire again. Kaylee held a strange fruit in her hand, peeling its skin carefully. You're good at this, she said. Living out here, no one helping you. I think I was waiting for someone to need help again, Eli answered. Kaylee looked down. And now you found me. Maybe. She thought for a moment, then said, There's something I need to do. If my ship's beacon is still active, it might send out a signal. If I don't find it soon, the wrong people could get to it first. Then we'll find it, Eli said calmly. We? She asked. I know these woods. You know what we're looking for. Sounds like a good team. Kaylee smiled, not out of politeness, but something real. A small piece of comfort. She had fallen from the sky, ready to die. But now she was alive, healing, and not alone. She didn't know what they would find next, or what danger might be coming. But one thing was clear. Eli wasn't just the man who saved her. He was someone she could trust. The morning sun pushed light through the trees as Kaylee and Eli walked through the forest. Kaylee's legs still hurt, but she was stronger now. With a long stick to help her walk, she moved forward, her eyes scanning the ground carefully. Somewhere, out here, parts of her ship were still waiting, and more importantly, her beacon. If it was still working, it could call for help, or bring more danger. Eli led the way, moving with quiet steps. He pointed out animal trails, hidden roots, and signs of falling branches. Kaylee watched him, surprised by how easily he read the land. He had no tracking devices, no scanners, no maps. Just experience. Are you sure this is the right direction? She asked. I followed the smoke the night I found you. Your crash wasn't far from here. We're close. Kaylee nodded. Her heart beat a little faster. She had seen many planets, many kinds of people, but she had never met someone quite like Eli. He had lost so much, yet stayed kind. He asked for nothing, but gave everything he could. After a few hours of walking, they reached a small hill. Kaylee paused and looked around. Something felt strange. The wind had stopped. The birds were silent. She touched her wrist panel, hoping to catch a signal, but it was still dead. Just then, Eli pointed to a broken tree ahead. There. Burn marks. Something hit this. Kaylee moved forward and knelt by the base of the tree. The bark was scorched. Pieces of metal lay scattered nearby. Her ship. This was it. They searched the area together, and soon they found a large piece of wreckage leaning against a rock wall. Kaylee walked around it, her eyes sharp. Then she spotted it, a blinking blue light under a torn panel. The beacon, she whispered. She pulled the panel aside and checked the small machine. It was still active. Somehow the power hadn't died yet. But that wasn't good news. If this is still sending signals, she said slowly, someone else might already be coming. Eli crouched beside her. Your people? I don't. No, she replied. It could be my team, or the ones who attacked us. Eli's eyes narrowed. What happens if the wrong ones get here first? They'll find me, and they won't let me go. Eli didn't ask more. He just stood up and said, Then we need to move fast. They carried the beacon with them, wrapping it in cloth to hide the light. The climb back toward the cave was slower now, and the forest felt less friendly. Every rustle in the bushes, every sound of leaves made Kaylee's body tense. She wasn't sure if someone was already tracking them. That night, back in the cave, Kaylee sat near the fire, thinking. The beacon signal couldn't be turned off without a tool she had lost. And now that she knew someone might have targeted her ship, she couldn't take chances. I need to reach higher ground, she told Eli. If I boost the signal, I can send a full distress call. Maybe then my people will come before anyone else. There's a mountain ridge not far from here, Eli said. Old radio towers used to be there. The climb's hard, but you'll get a better range. Kaylee looked at him. You don't have to come with me. This is getting dangerous. Eli met her eyes. I know, but you're not going alone. The next morning, they packed what little they had, food, water, a small light, and the beacon. Eli had wrapped the machine tightly in an old blanket and strapped it to his back. Kaylee carried a walking stick and a small knife from the crash. The hike to the mountain ridge took most of the day. As they climbed higher, the air grew colder and the trees thinner. Clouds moved across the sky like giant ships. Kaylee's legs burned with pain, but she pushed forward. She had faced war zones, deep space, and fire. This mountain would not stop. By late afternoon, they reached the ridge. An old steel tower stood broken near the edge, half covered in vines. Kaylee moved quickly, opening a panel on the beacon and connecting it to one of the rusted cables. It might work, she said. Eli stood guard nearby, watching the sky. If someone's looking, they'll see this signal. Kaylee typed a quick message into the beacon, a short call for help, her ID number, location, status, alive, in danger. The machine blinked, then turned green. Message sent, she said with a breath of relief. But just then, a noise echoed through the trees below, a strange whirring sound, not wind, not an animal. Eli turned sharply. Drones! Kaylee's heart sank. She looked out over the forest and saw them, 3 small black machines flying low through the trees, scanning everything in their path. They weren't her people's drones. They found the beacon, she said. They're not friendly. Eli grabbed her hand. We need to go. They turned and started down the ridge, moving fast. The forest was steep, and Kaylee nearly slipped twice, but Eli caught her. The sound of the drones grew louder behind them. Then came a sharp burst of light. One of the drones had seen them. Go! Eli shouted. They ran through the trees, dodging branches and rocks. Kaylee's leg throbbed with every step, but fear pushed her forward. The drones chased them, flashing lights and scanning red beams across the ground. Suddenly, Eli tripped and rolled down a slope, landing hard. Kaylee rushed to him. Are you hurt? He groaned, holding his shoulder. I think it's dislocated. Kaylee looked around. The drones were coming. She had seconds to decide. Without thinking, she pulled him up, wrapping his arm across her shoulders. We're not stopping, she said. Hold on. Together they stumbled through the forest, breath heavy, hearts racing. Kaylee didn't know how far they could go. She didn't know if help would arrive. But she knew one thing clearly now. Eli had risked his life to help her again, and she would not leave him behind. Kaylee held Eli tightly as they moved through the forest. His shoulder hung at an awkward angle, and his steps were slow. But he didn't complain, not once. The pain was clear in his face, but he kept going because he knew they had to. Behind them, the sound of drones echoed through the trees. Their wings buzzed like angry insects, and now and then a red light flashed through the branches, searching. Kaylee knew those drones were not just for watching. If they got too close, they would try to capture, or worse. The path ahead was rough. Roots stuck out from the ground and fallen branches blocked the way. Kaylee's leg was still weak, and now, with Eli leaning on her, she had to push harder than ever. Every step was a fight, but she would not stop. They finally found a small, rocky gap between two large boulders. Kaylee helped Eli slip behind one, hiding them from above. She checked. Her scanner, still broken. No way to tell how close the drones were now. Eli leaned his back against the rock, breathing hard. Sweat dripped down his forehead. His face was pale. "Let me look at it," Kaylee said softly, pointing to his shoulder. He nodded. She carefully removed the outer layer of his shirt and felt around the joint. She had enough training in field medicine to understand what was wrong. The shoulder had popped out of place during the fall. It needed to be put back. "This is going to hurt," she warned. Eli gave a small smile. "More than crashing from space?" Kaylee smiled back, then quickly pulled his arm and twisted slightly. Eli gasped in pain, but the joint snapped back in place. He let out a deep breath, and his whole body relaxed. "Thank you," he whispered. Kaylee wrapped the shoulder with some cloth from her gear, tying it tightly to keep it still. Then they waited, listening to the sound of the forest. The drones moved away for a while, but Kaylee knew they would return. Whoever had sent them wasn't giving up. As the sun started to set, Kaylee stood and looked to the sky. Her distress signal had been sent hours ago. If her people were out there, they should have responded by now, unless something, or someone, was blocking them. "Do you think they'll find us?" Eli asked, his voice soft and tired. "I hope so," she said, "but I'm not waiting here to be hunted. We need to keep moving." Eli nodded slowly. "Lead the way." They walked deeper into the forest, this time following a dry stream bed that curved between hills. The trees grew thicker, hiding them from above. Kaylee stopped now and then to check the beacon, still blinking, still sending. At nightfall, they found a small cave just large enough to crawl into. It wasn't much, but it was dry and hidden. Kaylee helped Eli lie down, then built a small fire using old twigs and leaves. She didn't sleep. She sat at the entrance, watching the shadows move. Her hand rested near the beacon, and her eyes scanned the sky. She felt the weight of responsibility, again, just like she had on her ship. Back then, she had failed to protect her crew. She couldn't fail again. In the early hours of morning, a low rumble shook the ground. It wasn't thunder, it was deeper, more powerful. Kaylee rushed out of the cave and looked up. A ship. It was large and dark, moving slowly across the clouds. Not the enemy drones this time. This was a cruiser, and she recognized the design. "My people," she whispered. She turned and ran back inside. "Eli, they're here. My team is here." He sat up, rubbing his eyes. "You sure?" Kaylee nodded. "They must have gotten the signal. We need to make ourselves visible." They climbed out of the cave and moved quickly toward a clearing. Kaylee pulled a flare stick from her belt, one of the few things that had survived the crash. She lit it, and a bright orange flame shot into the air. Seconds later, the ship above changed course. It hovered over them, and a wide beam of light dropped from its underside. A soft voice spoke through a speaker. "Commander Kaylee Thorne, we see you. Stand by." Kaylee helped Eli stand. They both looked up as a small shuttle detached from the cruiser and lowered itself down near them. The door opened with a hiss, and two figures in silver uniforms stepped out. Their faces lit up when they saw Kaylee. "Commander," one of them said, "we thought you were gone." Kaylee smiled, but her eyes turned to Eli. "I wouldn't have made it without him." The officers looked at Eli, surprised. "He's human," she said, "but he saved my life more than once." They nodded and offered Eli a seat in the shuttle. Kaylee helped him up the ramp. As the door closed, she looked one last time at the forest below, the trees, the shadows, the place where she had almost died, and the man who refused to let that happen. Back on the main ship, Kaylee gave her full report. She explained the attack. On her transport, the crash, the hidden drones. Her team listened carefully. Some of them were shocked, some were angry, but they believed her. Later that night, as the ship floated safely above Earth's orbit, Kaylee sat beside Eli in the medbay. His arm was wrapped properly now, and he looked cleaner, more rested. "You really went through a lot for a stranger," she said. Eli smiled. "You're not a stranger anymore." She looked at him, feeling a warmth inside she hadn't felt in a long time. "No," she said quietly. "I'm not. Let me know when you're ready for part 5 and I'll expand it with the same engaging, clean, and emotional style." The hum of the ship was steady and calm as Kaylee sat beside Eli in the medbay. The bright white lights above made the room feel sterile and cold, but inside, something warm grew between them. Eli's injured shoulder was wrapped carefully now, and his face looked more relaxed than it had in weeks. Kaylee watched him quietly. She remembered how fragile he had been in the forest, how much pain he had hidden. But now, here in this place, he was safe. She had saved him, and he had saved her. Neither of them had expected this friendship, this bond, when their worlds first collided. The ship's captain entered, nodding at them both. "Commander Thorne, your report was thorough. We're sending a team to investigate the attackers. You did well to survive." Kaylee gave a small smile but felt the weight of everything still pressing down. "Thank you, Captain. I couldn't have made it without Eli." The captain looked at Eli with respect. "You're a brave man. The crew is grateful." Eli nodded quietly. Later, Kaylee stood by a large window looking out at the blue and green planet below. Earth. So peaceful, so full of life, and yet so complicated. She thought about her mission, her crew, and the war that had tried to end it all. But now she had a new mission, a different purpose. She turned back to the room where Eli sat, reading quietly. Their journey had begun with fire and danger, but it was far from over. Over the next days, Kaylee worked with her team to repair the damage from the crash and plan the next steps. Eli helped in small ways, fixing simple machines, sharing his knowledge of Earth's terrain, and teaching Kaylee about life beyond space battles. One afternoon, Kaylee found herself walking alone through the ship's garden, a small green space designed to remind travelers of home. The plants smelled sweet and fresh. The air was cool. Eli joined her, carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers he had found during a trip to Earth. "I thought these might brighten the place up," he said, smiling. Kaylee took the flowers and breathed in their scent. "Thank you." "They do." They walked side by side in silence for a while. Then Kaylee spoke softly. "Eli, do you ever think about going back to your old life? To the city?" He looked at her. "Sometimes. But after all this, I'm not sure I want to." She nodded. "Me neither. The crash, the chase, the help, they had changed, both of them. They were no longer just two lost souls. They were connected, bound by something stronger than fear or duty." That evening, Kaylee sat in the ship's common room, watching the stars. She thought about what she had learned, about trust, kindness, and hope. Eli walked in quietly and sat beside her. "Do you think we'll see each other again?" he asked. Kaylee smiled. "I hope so." He reached out, taking her hand gently. "No, more alone," he said. "Never again," she agreed. Their journey had started with a crash, with danger, and with the thought that all was lost. But now, as they looked toward the future, Kaylee knew one thing clearly. Sometimes, the greatest rescue comes not from a ship or a mission, but from the hands of another human being. And that was the beginning of a new story.